I'm St. Lucie County Sheriff Keith Pearson. And I'm St. Lucie County Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Jon R Prince.
What shocks me is you have a superintendent and a sheriff that put an example up on a public service announcement where the bus was not driving to the specifications of the commercial driver's license manual. And their solution was to run a traffic stop here instead of consulting with state engineering.
I'm St. Lucie County Sheriff Keith Pearson. And I'm St. Lucie County Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Jon R Prince. With nearly 50,000 students in St. Lucie County Public Schools, many of whom ride a school bus, it's paramount that you help keep our kids safe.
Far too often, we see vehicles not stopped for school buses picking up students. Being distracted or trying to beat a stopped bus is no excuse. If you don't stay stopped, you will be cited.
The reason I'm stopping you is that bus had its red lights on and you went right by it.
Here's a diagram to let you know when you need to stop for school buses.
Okay, I went ahead and I paused the safety video just before we see the school bus come to a stop. And there are a few things I wanted to point out here. If you have not seen my Lesson 3 School Bus CDL Operations 4 points, it gets into the operating procedures of most commercial driver's license manuals, section 10.2.1. I cover Maryland's manual, but it reads basically identical to Florida's commercial driver's license manual. Now, the first thing I saw when the bus was approaching was the yellow crossing guard was extended. And that's this part right here, this yellow bar here. Now, I've been told that that's mechanically connected to the stop arm, and when I looked up to the corner here, I see what appears to be a stop arm deployed, just peeking out right there. I also saw the red alternating flashing stop lights engaged. And just so you know what to look for, or to show that it's still in motion, watch the movement of the wheels. That'll tell you everything. And just to basically get into the 4 points or some of the critical things, a school bus is to engage its yellow lights or its amber alternating lights, come to a stop, make sure vehicles are a safe distance, then deploy its red lights and stop arm, and then once all vehicles have come to a stop, open its doors to let children board.
Students in St. Lucie County Public Schools, many of whom students in St. Lucie County Public Schools, many of whom ride a school bus. Students in St. Lucie County Public Schools, many of whom ride a school bus.
The next thing we're going to try to do is identify where the school bus is actually stopping and where they have this traffic stop set up. Now, we're going to look in the background, and one thing that stands out is this blue roof. The news also said it's close to, the stop is close to, I believe it's Port St. Lucie Boulevard and Route 1. Use Google Maps to help me create this graphic here. I actually did it wrong the first time, so I'm going back and correcting my work. This is actually the second time I had the wrong location for the bus stop, so always trying to correct my work if I see I made an error. The blue roof in the video is right here. This is Northwest Federal Highway 1, and towards the bottom right-hand corner of the picture, you can see where the school bus is stopped with the yellow X. The location of the police, I went ahead and made a red X. Now, all of these buildings along Northwest Federal Highway appear to all be commercial in nature. Maybe light manufacturing, but definitely commercial. Then right behind that, and this is kind of important, just take note of this, you have a residential neighborhood. So that'll be narrower streets, lower speed limits. Probably an easier road to pick children up off of than a 45-mile federal highway with a 45 mile per hour federal highway with probably 4 lanes of traffic going in either direction. And next we're going to turn our attention to the top here in this box labeled intersection. This is the intersection about 300 feet in front of where the bus stop is. I tried my best to identify it with this little yellow arrow here. And when an engineer has to stop this many lanes of traffic on this type of road, they set up a signal system. It consists of this high boom, probably about 20 feet high, maybe more. Sorry, this high pole. And then there's a boom going across it. I'm finishing up a video now. It should be up by the time I put this up. Lesson 4 gets into central vision, lines of sight, things along those lines. I'll put a link down there for you to watch that so you can kind of get a better idea of what I'm talking about. But when you're driving, an engineer has determined that a traffic light box be placed over each independent lane. It has to be set so high to give you a clear line of sight of exactly what you're seeing, and it's even going to use a programmable logic control to make sure that that light sequence replicates itself the same way each time. When they program that light sequence, they are looking probably 400 feet upstream before you get to the light to determine grade of road, bend in road. There's a lot of science put behind it. I try to do an estimating poll based off the traffic of how high the bus might sit. Probably around there. Again, it's an estimate. So my concern is, and you can see why this might be a problem, you've got all these cars driving, you've got vehicles obstructing other vehicles' views, just simple things like that. And it's a wide road, a wide, high, fast road in a commercial area. It might be why you're having a hard time for people stopping on that bus stop, but also look at the practices of how the bus driver stops at that bus stop. What shocks me is you have a superintendent and a sheriff that put an example up on a public service announcement where the bus was not driving to the specifications of the commercial driver's license manual. And their solution was to run a traffic stop here instead of consulting with state engineering. Here are 2 possible solutions to help this issue at hand. The first is to simply move the school bus stop to the residential neighborhood that sits behind this commercial property. The lower speed limit and 2-lane road will create a safer environment to pick the child up in and not put people at risk for these traffic stings, if you will. The second option, and this is the one I like the best because if everybody gets on board and they agree this is an acceptable solution, then it can be applied to all types of infrastructure throughout your state, or at least throughout St. Lucie County, that resembles this right here, the 4 lanes, the higher speeds. So what we're going to do here is when the bus approaches the stop, it's going to ease off the road, pull into the driveway. It's no longer in the flows of traffic on the road. Possibly put on its emergency flashers, not deploy its red flashing lights, and not deploy its stop arm. So the idea is that hopefully these vehicles will be able to still flow freely, and then these lanes closest to the center divide won't have to worry about illegally passing a school bus because their line of sight or their visual fields are obstructed by other flows of traffic. Child boards the bus. The traffic light that sits about 400 or 500 feet in front of this stop, when it turns red to restrict these flows of traffic, the bus will then have the opportunity to ease back onto Route 1 and continue picking up children throughout the day. Now there are states, Pennsylvania is one of them, where they recognize this type of stop So you might have to get your lawmakers involved. They have to tweak the law, but it recognizes this type of stop, and it specifically says that the bus is not to deploy its red flashing lights or its stop arm if it's no longer on the roadway, but pulled off to the side. So this, in my opinion, I'm going to warn St. Lucie County now, because I've seen a trend of this stuff. They'll run these traffic stings, and then they will try to push a school bus stop arm camera program a few months later. And this type of road, where you've got all these lanes flowing, or roads that are this wide without the center divide, those are the bread and butter for these companies, because they just write tickets all day long. And in my opinion, there's not a lot of regard for if you can or cannot see the bus. So hopefully this helps and brings awareness to some situations that you obviously have in your county. And drive safely.